Let me tell you, if you don't know already, you may or may not know. I'm a Patriots fan. And it's been probably about 10 weeks since my goals for the team have altered significantly. It's all about getting the best draft pick at this point, right? It's been like that for weeks, months. Tank for Caleb. Do it. Tank it. Tank it into the ground. They were doing a great job. They were doing a great job. Not on purpose, but they were doing a great job. And maybe the first overall pick, maybe that's a little bit unrealistic because the Panthers are just so bad. But there was a little bit of hope when they fired Frank Reich. Sometimes when these coaches get fired mid-season, breathes a little bit of life into the team, and somehow they pull out a couple wins, right? We see it all the time. So that gave me a little bit of hope. Maybe the Patriots could get to the number 1 pick. Can we make it happen? Let's end the misery. Draft Caleb Williams. We got a franchise quarterback for the next 20 years again. So you can imagine my frustration during Thursday night's game as they lost to the freaking Steelers. Or they beat the freaking Steelers. Felt like a loss. Believe me, it felt like a loss. I hadn't gotten that frustrated and annoyed in games that they lost over the years. And they're out here winning, and I am pissed. A couple weeks ago against the Giants, when they were about to tie the game, send it to overtime as like a 30-yard field goal. They missed it. And they lost the game to the Giants. I was celebrating that game like I was celebrating some friggin' playoff wins over the years. I jumped out of my chair, fist pumping, celebrating a loss. It was a great feeling. It's the first time in a while that I felt something for that team, one way or another. I felt passionate about that team. And sure, it's passionate about them losing, but I felt something. It felt great. And the other night, I was pissed. But this, and what made me so much more upset about it is thinking about, 2020, heading into the 2021 draft class. This is exactly how the Jets ended up with Zach Wilson instead of Trevor Lawrence. Because they fucked around at the end of the season, won a couple games, and that's how you ended up with Zach Wilson. So that's what's going through my head. Pisses me off. Can't even freaking tank properly. Damn it. So frustrating. But I know nobody feels bad for us Patriots fans. But let me tell you, man. And as an honorary Steelers fan for the night, man, I feel bad for Steelers fans. Holy shit. Because us as Patriots fans, at least we have some hope. Maybe they're not going to get the number 1 pick. Maybe they don't even get the number 2 pick. But there's a damn good chance that they're in a top 3 pick and they're in position to take a stud quarterback. You can feel good about that, at least. And the Steelers are in quarterback purgatory for a long time because they're going to win too many games to be a top 5 pick to go get their next quarterback. But they're not going to have good enough quarterback play to do shit because Kenny Pickett sucks. Mitchell Trubisky is basically Kenny Pickett. He sucks. And let me tell you, I know Matt Canada got a lot of criticism over the last couple of years, and deservingly so. Sure, I'll give you that. Whatever they got going on ain't much better right now. It ain't much better. Some of those play calls in 3rd and shorts, 4th and shorts at the end of that game for the Steelers were pathetic. They were awful. What are you doing? What are you doing? Like 3rd and 3 at the end of the game. Game on the line. Plenty of time left, but game on the line with Mitchell Trubisky as your quarterback. The run game is the strength of that offense. If that offense has a strength, it's the run game. Why aren't you running it there on 3rd and short? Maybe you don't pick it up. Maybe you still get 4th down, but it's 4th and a yard and you run it again. And I'm the last guy to try to tell an offense to run the ball. I'm all about passing the ball. I know passing the ball is a more efficient way to move the football. But there are certain situations where it's time to run the ball. And there were a couple of those that were pretty obvious for the Steelers, and they decided to put the game in the hands of Mitchell Trubisky. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. But we're not here to listen to me rant about my poor Patriots fan, not going to get the number 1 pick, not going to get Caleb Williams, not going to get another Tom Brady for the next 20 years. Nobody cares. But I had to get that out. What we are here to do is we're going to rank some guys for week 14. We're going to go through the running back rankings, going to go through the wide receiver rankings. And every week when we do this show, we end up making changes. We discuss it between you and me. We talk it out, make some changes. We'll make them live on the air. You'll see it reflected right on yardsperfantasy.com. So let me share the screen and get the running back rankings pulled up. And we'll get this thing going. And by the way, as we're doing this, drop your questions in the comments. We do answer questions throughout this show. We'll do some rankings for a few minutes, and then we'll answer questions for a few minutes, and then we'll go back to the rankings. So it's kind of it's a show of the people. It's a show of the people. You have a say in our week 14 rankings on yardsperfantasy.com. And I'm going to help you make your lineup decisions on one of the most important weeks of the fantasy football season. The fantasy playoffs are a week away. I can't believe that. The fantasy playoffs are a week away. That's wild, man. This season has gone by so fast. I have the wrong overlay on, by the way. There we go. I can't believe how fast the season goes by. We're a week away from the fantasy football playoffs. It goes like that, man. It goes like that. But it's exciting. It's an exciting time. But these games this week, they matter. I have one team in a league that, I know you don't care about my teams, but I got to tell you, I have one team in a dynasty league that literally this week is playing for 2 things. It could get as high as the number 1 seed. It could get a first-round bye. I'm playing for a first-round bye. If I lose and things kind of fall a certain way, I won't make the playoffs at all. I'll be the number 7 seed. I could be the 1 seed, or I could be the 7 seed, or anywhere in between. It is freaking wild. That league is so competitive and it's so much fun. All right. Let's get to Chuck's. Chuck's feels my pain. It's been a brutal season, man. Yeah, brutal season. Like, it sucks when they're losing, but then it's like gets to the point where it's so bad that you just want them to keep losing, and then they start winning. What the fuck, man? Nothing can go right. Let's get this one from Jack. Jack doesn't give a shit about us Patriots fans. Rashad White or Zach Moss? We're going to go Rashad White. We're going to get to him pretty early in these rankings. I believe I have him in my top 5. We have him in the top 5 for this week. Great. I mean, last week was his worst week in a while, and it was still pretty solid. He's been consistent. He gives you the floor with his passing ability or his receiving ability. And that also opens up his ceiling. He's the only guy getting touches in that backfield. And I mean, we like Zach Moss. He's the only guy getting touches in that backfield too, but there's a big difference. At this point, we just got to go with the talent. And Rashad White is a hell of a lot more talented than Zach Moss. But I mean, I do like Zach Moss. He's definitely trending up, but he's significantly lower in the rankings than Rashad White. Let's get this one from Ryan real quick, and then we'll get to the rankings. Puka Nacua or Amari Cooper. I was going to say Cooper Cup. Amari Cooper. I think we got to go Puka Nacua. I mean, I'm not worried about, honestly, I'm not worried about rain. Rain doesn't really bother me too much. It's more of like if it ends up being windy. I mean, I'm not dialed in with the forecast enough to really know. Maybe I should be. But as far as I know, it's just rain in that game. That's not going to be like whipping winds. And man, Amari Cooper's hard to trust. Amari Cooper is hard to trust. And we still don't know who's playing quarterback. I think it's going to be Joe Flacco, but they haven't announced it. Either way, I'm going to trust Puka Nacua with Matthew Stafford than Cooper with either DTR or Flacco. All right, let's get to these running back rankings. I'll answer some more questions as we go throughout. So running back, I always say it every week. That stud tier, easy. Christian McCaffrey. Absolute stud. Where the hell is he on this list? Got to scroll for McCaffrey. Yeah, I mean, we don't have to talk about Christian McCaffrey. He's easy number one running back. As long as he's healthy, he's in this tier all by himself. And then we got Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is the RB2 for the week. Going against the Panthers. Pretty good matchup there for him. With Derek Carr, I don't know. The second time this year, I don't know how the hell he's playing. He got through concussion protocol somehow, and he had like 6 other injuries. And yet he's still going to play. But we saw what happened earlier in the season when Derek Carr had a similar injury situation where it was like, there's no way he's playing. But then he actually plays. And it was just Kamara, check down. So it's going to be a big Kamara game. They're going to lean heavily on the run game. They're going to check it down to Alvin Kamara. I think that gives you a little bit worry about Chris Olave, but we'll get to him when we get to the wide receiver rankings. And then we got back to life, out of the coffin. Tony Pollard is back in the top 5. Not back in the top 5. He's back in the top 3. Tony Pollard is back. I know he's got a little bit of a tough matchup. Eagles have a pretty solid run defense, but there's going to be a lot of points scored in that game. Which, I mean, that's going to involve Tony Pollard. He's going to catch passes. He's going to score some touchdowns. They're going to get to the goal line. They're going to get to the red zone. Tony Pollard, he's been getting red zone touches all year long, even though it took him he went like 10 weeks without scoring a touchdown. But he's been scoring touchdowns. He looks better. He just looks more like himself. He's got juice back in those legs. Maybe it's just the injury. The surgery that he had in the offseason maybe just lingered longer than we expected. We didn't really respect that injury enough coming into the year. And, well, the whole offense, Tony Pollard, everybody's figured it out there in Dallas. So keep playing Tony Pollard. He's a top 3 running back rest of the season. Devon Achane. Devon Achane's back in the top 5. He had, 17 carries last week, first game back. He also has a tough matchup going against the Titans. They're pretty good against the run. Terrible against the pass, but they're good against the run. But in that offense, with his role, with his ability to explode at any moment, I think Devon Achane, top 10 or top 5 running back. So keep playing Achane as well. Why are these guys so out of order? I don't understand. All right, here's Achane. All right. He's going to go right in the same tier as these guys. And then this is where we get to Rachaad White, who we've already talked about a few minutes ago. We had a question from Jack about Rachaad White. So we don't really need to dive too far into Rachaad White. I believe he's also in that A tier. And then we'll move on to Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson, efficiency hasn't been great the last few weeks, but the role has been fantastic. The role is there, right? The role with Bijan is there. And this is where the schedule starts to open up. He's got a fantastic playoff schedule. I don't know it off the top of my head. Even though I've talked about it a million times throughout the last few weeks, fantastic playoff schedule for Bijan Robinson. If I have him, Um, I'm excited. I'm excited for the playoffs with Bijan Robinson. I think that's going to start this week, the week before the playoffs. Got a pretty good matchup against the Buccaneers. I think that'll be a good game for Bijan. They're at home. He's been getting a ton of carries, continues to be involved in the passing game, and they're getting him the red zone touches that he was not seeing earlier in the season. So feel really good about Bijan. And Josh Jacobs, similar type of role, maybe not as extensive in the passing game, but Josh Jacobs also has a pretty solid matchup this week against the Vikings. Vikings aren't the worst, but they're not the best for sure. I think Jacobs, that offense is Josh Jacobs. It's Josh Jacobs, it's Devontae Adams, and that's about it. Maybe once in a while you can sprinkle in a little bit of Jacoby Myers, but otherwise, this offense is going through Josh Jacobs. Even if the efficiency isn't there, the touches, the volume, it's good enough to be a top 7 guy. We could say the same thing about Saquon. Saquon Barkley is my RB8 for the week. The offense is bad. It's not as bad as it was, about a month ago, but it's still pretty bad. And that's definitely capping the ceiling of Saquon Barkley. But same thing with Josh Jacobs. Same thing with Bijan Robinson. The role is elite. You got to keep feeding him. So we're going to play Saquon. A little bit of a difficult matchup. The Packers defense has been pretty good. Packers defense, a little underrated. They're playing pretty well, even without J.R. Alexander. He's been out for a while. I believe he's out again this week, but they've still been performing. Beat the Chiefs. I mean, they beat the Chiefs, man. That team is on the rise. They are ascending for sure. Let's get this one from Leo. Jordan Addison, Tajay Spears, or Tajay Spears in the flex. Do you want to edit that question? I believe there were probably supposed to be a third player there, but you used Spears twice. But Jordan Addison, Tajay Spears, or Tajay Spears for the flex. We're going to go with, I was going to just say automatically Jordan Addison. We can kind of dive into Jordan Addison a little bit for a minute. Justin Jefferson. He was out for so long, I forgot his name. Justin Jefferson is back. Justin Jefferson is back. And that ain't good news for Jordan Addison, let me tell you. If Kirk Cousins was still there, it'd be all right. It would certainly be a significant step back for Jordan Addison, but he'd still be playable as a wide receiver 3. Right now, I don't think Jordan Addison is super playable. Unless you're in one of these deeper leagues, I'm worried about Jordan Addison with Justin Jefferson back. Because I know everybody wants to say that Josh Dobbs is this great quarterback, but let me tell you, he's still Josh Dobbs, all right? It's still Josh Dobbs. He's not that good. He's had some good games. He's not that good, all right? So when Justin Jefferson steps into that lineup, it's going to be the Justin Jefferson show. Justin Jefferson's still going to score at a high level. Jordan Addison's going to disappear. All right? He's going to disappear. It's going to be kind of like Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers in Las Vegas. The second that Jimmy Garoppolo stepped out of the lineup, it was pretty much nighty-night for Jacoby Myers. Now, I know Myers has sprung up for a couple of decent games, but for the most part, Myers, for a while there, he just disappeared. He was gone. Just gone. And I'm worried that we're going to see a similar thing from Jordan Addison. Now, with Tajay Spears, they're playing Miami, which they're going to be trailing. And in games that they've been trailing, we've seen a pretty fair amount of Tajay Spears. And Derrick Henry got banged up last week. So we're going to see more Tajay Spears this week anyway. Either way, this is a dice roll. This could go either way, with Addison or Spears. I think I'm going to roll the dice with Spears because they are going to have to lean on the run. They're going to have to lean on the passing game, and we could see some checkdowns to Tajay Spears. I think he's going to be the more involved running back in that game between him and Derrick Henry. So I'm going to roll the dice with Spears. Both have low floors, but I'm going to go with Spears there. All right, let's get back to these running back rankings. We've gotten through the top 7 so far. Saquon Barkley is where we left off. Keep the questions coming. We will continue to work those in throughout the show. Next up is my RB9, and that is Travis Etienne. Now, he would be higher, but there are a couple things here. Travis Etienne, he's not 100% healthy. Either is his quarterback, and we don't even know if Trevor Lawrence is playing. I really haven't gotten a good read on it. Is he playing? Is he not playing? I don't know. He's had some limited practice. I saw some video clips of Trevor Lawrence dropping back and throwing passes. He might play. Either way, it's going to be either 75% of Trevor Lawrence or it's going to be CJ Beathard, who also is not 100%. Going against the Browns defense that has been elite this year. They've been dominating, shutting teams down, shutting running backs down. So there's definitely a little bit of risk with rolling out Travis Etienne this week, but with his role, with that offense, especially if Trevor Lawrence plays, and with Travis Etienne's talent, we still have to play him as a top 10 running back. He's an RB1. But normally we'd have him closer to the top 5 than we do. So we'll put Travis Etienne as the RB9 for the week. Then we got my guy, not my guy, but my guy, Kyren Williams. I don't know how he does it. He's not a good running back, but he keeps scoring fantasy points. Elite role there in Los Angeles for Kyren Williams. And admittedly, he's better than I thought he was. We'll give him that. I still don't think he's a good running back. He's not a good running back. Overrated. But he's better than I thought he was. All right. I think that's a fair compromise. Right? It's fair. It's fair. He's not good, but he's not as bad as I thought. That's fair. Then we get DeAndre Swift. Now we talked about Tony Pollard. This game is going to be it's going to be fun. Going to be a lot of real life points scored and a lot of fantasy points scored. Now DeAndre Swift got a little banged up last week, so we might see a little bit more Kenneth Gainwell than we normally do. But we want a running back in that offense, so we're going to keep playing DeAndre Swift. He's a low end RB1 for this week, as is Jahmyr Gibbs. It's looking like game script is really going to play a big role between he and David Montgomery. And by the way, I do have them back to back here, so I'm going to just put Montgomery on this board. While we talk about Jahmyr Gibbs, we can just talk about these guys at the same time. This has become a very, very game script dependent backfield at this point. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs is too damn explosive to sit in any game because he can go off at any time, even in a more positive game script, because he's still catching passes. He's explosive. He's got a little bit of red zone work. And then Dave Montgomery playing against the Bears this week, his former team, revenge game narrative. Maybe we get a nice game from David Montgomery. And it's the Bears. The Lions should have positive game script, which favors David Montgomery. So I have these guys back to back, RB12, RB13. Because Jahmyr Gibbs is the more explosive of the two, and he's more involved in the passing game. Although I believe they both had 2 targets last week, so it's even there too lately. But we still got to give the slight edge to Jahmyr Gibbs. But I'm happy to play them both. And then we will get to Zach Moss. Zach Moss is my RB14 for the week. Now, last week he was highly disappointing. He very much underwhelmed. There was a lot of hype because of what he had done earlier in the season. During Jonathan Taylor's holdout. He was fantastic. And last week, everybody was excited to play him again. And he gave you what, 7.7, I think it was 7.7 fantasy points. It was brutal. It was bad. Bad. Not good. However, the role was fantastic. The role was exactly what he had earlier in the season. He was going against the Titans defense. We talked about the Titans a little bit a few minutes ago. Titans have a good run defense. Their pass defense sucks. The run defense is really good. So we'll give Zach Moss a pass there. Gardner Minshew dropped back like 45 times or so in that game. So we can't expect a Zach Moss to really get there for us in that type of game environment. But we're not going to see that more. More often than not, we're not going to get that type of game from the Colts offense. And like I said, the role was still there. Zach Moss played 94% of the snaps. He led the backfield in targets, completely dominated the rush attempts between those running backs. I don't think Trey Sermon or Tyler Goodson had a carry. I might be wrong about that. I can't remember. But I know each of them had I think one of them had, I can't remember which one had which. One of them had 2 targets. One of them had 1, I believe. And then Zach Moss himself had 3. And he played 94% of the snaps. So, and he ran 32 routes in that game. That was a 64% route participation rate. So keep playing Zach Moss. He's going to bounce right back. Going against the Bengals, a much lighter run defense than the Titans. So I think Zach Moss will be just fine. And then we get to Austin Eckler. So I made a video this week and we talked about Austin Eckler. We had to have a conversation, man. We had to have a conversation about Austin Eckler. Is he dust? Is he injured? Is this just kind of a rough stretch? What's happening? What is happening with Austin Eckler? I think he's what, 28 years old. He had multiple ankle injuries earlier this season. He had a high ankle sprain, then he tweaked another. And I think it's all kind of coming together. The Chargers offense has been underwhelming. And it's just turning Austin Eckler into this big dust cloud that's just being, you can just see as Austin Eckler is running down the sideline, he's just galloping at a slow pace. The dust is just flying off of him as these 300-pound defensive linemen are tackling him from behind. They're catching him down the sideline. He can't run anymore. And just the dust is just flying everywhere. Just dust. And they tackle him, and it's just a cloud. Dust everywhere. I think it might be over for Austin Eckler. I'm probably exaggerating quite a bit, but the cliff is near. He's nearing the cliff for sure, which is unfortunate. But we're going to get the answer this week. Going against the Broncos, they've been awful against the run. This could be a get-right game. If there's ever going to be a get-right game, Austin Eckler, this is going to be the game. All right? So this is like the last time. This is the last time we're rolling out Austin Eckler as a top 15 running back. If he doesn't hit this week, it's over. It's over. He's going to be outside the top 20 the rest of the season. We're just going to bring our dustpans and brooms, sweeping them up after every game. Just sweep it up that dust, man. Not good. Not good. Not good. Speaking of dust, my RB16 for the week is Derrick Henry. Now he's older and less dusty, I think, than Austin Eckler, but starting to see a few sprinkles of dust falling off of Derrick Henry lately too. So, and this is not the game environment for Derrick Henry. Now, what could happen? What could happen in this game? I could easily see, the Titans scoring like 17 points against the Dolphins. Maybe all of it comes in the fourth quarter because they're playing from behind, they're getting blown out. And maybe 2 touchdowns for Derrick Henry. He maybe ends the game with like 12 carries for 35 yards and 2 touchdowns. And we're all sitting there like, all right, well, got us 2 touchdowns. We're happy, right? We're happy. Can't complain about that. But yeah, it's not going to be a yardage game for Derrick Henry. This is not a game script. This is not a Derrick Henry game script. We talked about Tajay Spears a few minutes ago with a question. this is if you're gonna play Tajay Spears, this is the week to play Tajay Spears for sure. But I'm not sure this is the week you want to play Derrick Henry real confidently. But because he is Derrick Henry, and the threat of scoring touchdowns is always there with him, even in that bad offense, I think we still got to play him as a mid-tier RB2. Now, in that same area, RB2 land, is Jerome Ford. Now, this could be a nice Jerome Ford game environment. Jaguars defense is questionable. And if Trevor Lawrence is out, or even if Trevor Lawrence plays and he's not 100%, why can't I find Jerome Ford in this list here? So we're probably not going to get a lot of points, especially an injured Trevor Lawrence or a CJ Beathard going against that dominant Browns defense. It's not going to be a lot of points on the other side. So this could be the type of game where the Browns are like, all right, we're going to play it safe. We are going to, I found Jerome Ford. We are just going to run the ball all game long with Jerome Ford and get the fuck out of here. And that could mean a nice Jerome Ford game. Now, if there's not touchdowns involved in this game, that hurts us a little bit. We're starting Jerome Ford, but I think RB17 is an appropriate. I think that's an appropriate ranking for Jerome Ford this week. At RB18, we got Joe Mixon. We're going to rank just a couple more running backs, and then we'll move on to wide receivers. RB18, Joe Mixon. He does have a good matchup this week against the Colts. Colts defense is basically Swiss cheese. And the Bengals offense came to life last week. Jake Browning looked good. Let's just put it how it is. Jake Browning had one of the best quarterback performances of any quarterback in the league all season long last week against the Jaguars. I mean, I think you could have a similar performance against the Colts. The Colts defense ain't good. And if Jake Browning is playing at a high level, that's going to be good for Joe Mixon. Because the more efficient an offense is, the more plays they end up running, the more red zone opportunities they end up getting, the more space there is for these running backs, to the run lanes and catching passes. There's more opportunity for everybody involved when an offense is playing an efficient level. So Mixon's back in the top 20 for that reason. And then we'll round out the top 20 with Javonte Williams as the RB19, going against the Chargers, who have been terrible against the run this year. And then if Kenneth Walker plays, which sounds like he's got a pretty good chance of playing, he'll be the RB20. If not, then I think Zach Charbonnet goes right into that spot if he plays. And then if not, it's going to be Raheem Mostert. So Raheem Mostert would be the RB20 in that scenario. So we're just going to go rapid fire for the next few running backs. RB21 is Raheem Mostert. Then it's Breece Hall, James Cook, Keaton Mitchell, Devin Singletary, Roschon Johnson. This is my RB26. We got Chuba Hubbard, 27, Alexander Madison, Gus Edwards, and Jerick McKinnon will crack the top 30. All right. Let's move on to wide receivers. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. We will get to them for sure. In the meantime, we will hop over to the wide receiver rankings. Share this tab instead. All right. And on my end, I will switch over to the wide receivers. And we'll get going. So, wide receiver 1. Easy, right? Easy. I mean, at this point, it's gotten to be pretty much as easy as the running backs, as Christian McCaffrey. He's the stud. He's the guy you're ranking at number 1 every week. Well, the guy we're ranking at number 1 every week right now, at wide receiver, is Tyreek Hill. So Tyreek Hill is the wide receiver 1 for Week 14. I don't think there's much question about that. Great matchup against the Titans. And it really doesn't matter the matchup at this point with Tyreek Hill. He is destroying everybody. He's going to have a 2,000-yard receiving season. So our wide receiver number 2 is going to be CeeDee Lamb. This is another, I mean, the Eagles and the Titans have been 2 of the worst pass defenses in the league. They have ceded a ton of fantasy points to quarterbacks and to wide receivers all season long. And now they're each playing against an elite wide receiver. So we could see a lot of fantasy points from Tyreek Hill and a lot of fantasy points from CeeDee Lamb going against the Eagles. I cannot wait for Sunday Night Football. That is going to be a fantastic matchup. And then we got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think we got Amon-Ra going against the Bears. He sandwiches in, spoiler alert, looking ahead, he sandwiches in between these two guys who we're going to see on on Sunday Night Football, CeeDee Lamb and A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown will be the wide receiver 4, and we'll find Amon-Ra. We'll move him into the wide receiver 3 spot. I think this is our stud tier for Week 14. It's Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and A.J. Brown. These are the absolute must start. These are the studs of the week 14, these 4 wide receivers. And not far behind them is Jamar Chase, who is knocking on that door. Let me back in. This is my tier. Let me back in. One more week of what happened last week with Jake Browning, and he is going to be back in. They'll let him back in. They'll open the door. Hey, Jamar, come on back, bro. Come on back. But I think we got to see one more week from Jake Browning to play anywhere close to what he did last week before we can say Jamar Chase is locked into that stud tier the rest of the season. But he's still a top 5 wide receiver for Week 14, so we can't really get too upset about it, right? You're not going to kill me too much in the chat, please don't. But if you feel that way, do it. Let me know. Then we got Stephon Diggs, another game that is going to be a fun one. The Bills and the Chiefs, they have played some classics over the last couple of years. And I think while both of these offenses have not been at the same level this year compared to what we've seen over the last couple of years, they both kind of underwhelmed this year. Chiefs, a lot of it has been just the wide receiver core is just not there. Just don't have the weapons around Patrick Mahomes. And I hate to tell you, but Travis Kelce has lost, maybe just a half a step, but he's lost a half a step. And it's definitely making a difference here. And on the Bills side, it's Josh Allen. Josh Allen has just been a turnover machine. And he can't stop turning it over. The guy can't stop. He's addicted to turning the football over. He can't stop it. It's a problem. He's in rehab for it. It's all right. He'll get better. But right now, it's a problem. It's a problem for Josh Allen. And it's somewhat hurt Stephon Diggs at times this year. But we've still gotten elite performances from Stephon Diggs. And I think this could be a week where we do get that. And I think Gabe Davis is a good play this week. We've seen Gabe Davis destroy the Chiefs before. I think he could do it again. But we'll get to him in a little bit. And then we get to our guy. He's back. He is back. It's Justin Jefferson. He is the wide receiver 7 for Week 14. I think, if Kirk Cousins was the quarterback this week and Justin Jefferson wasn't coming off a multi-month injury, I think he'd easily be up there with these studs. He'd be in the top 3, right? For sure, absolutely. It's a great matchup going against the Raiders. But First game back, Josh Dobbs. I think we got to take it a little bit easy on Justin Jefferson. Obviously, you're still playing him. You're not benching a Justin Jefferson, but he might not be quite inside the top 5 that we normally would see him. So then we got Mike Evans. Mike Evans is my wide receiver 8 for week 14. He has another 1,000-yard season. I thought. Now we talked about Austin Eckler and Derrick Henry possibly being dusty earlier. Well, I brought my dustpan and broom to the season for Mike Evans this year because I thought for sure he was the dustiest of them all, other than Adam Thielen. But I was wrong. Mike Evans is playing as well as he's played maybe ever. He's playing out of his mind. He's fantastic. I was so wrong about these Buccaneers wide receivers this year. I thought it was going to be Chris Godwin having the fantastic season. I thought he was a better skill set match with Baker Mayfield than Mike Evans. And Mike Evans, like I said, I thought he was dust. I thought it was over. He has proved me completely wrong. And now we're having some big questions about Chris Godwin. What is going on with Chris Godwin? But we'll get to him. Wide receiver 9, Keenan Allen. Great matchup going against the Broncos. Being in the slot, he'll avoid the Patrick Surtain treatment. And they're just going to keep feeding Keenan Allen. Just keep feeding him. It's going to be a high volume target share every single week for Keenan Allen. Because they got no other options. This is a big A tier right here, though. Big A tier. But yeah, no other options in Los Angeles for the Chargers. And then we get to my guy, Michael Pittman. I've loved Michael Pittman for years. He's having a big time breakout season this year. I mean, he's been good in the past, but this is the real breakout. He is an absolute alpha wide receiver. He is commanding targets at a high volume, even in the face of some pretty good target competition with Josh Downs. Josh Downs has been good. He's had a really good rookie season. He's playing with a backup quarterback. He's still getting a ton of targets, ton of fantasy points, scoring touchdowns. Been a great year from Michael Pittman. I think that will continue this week going against the Bengals, especially if we can see Jake Browning playing well and scoring points on the other side. That will incentivize the Colts to have to drop back, keep throwing the ball, and try to score as many points as they possibly can, which will be fantastic news for any of us who are starting Michael Pittman. All right. We do have a couple questions in the chat. We'll get to these real quick. Then we will continue the wide receiver rankings. We're about halfway done through the wide receivers. All right. This one is from Pavan. Pick 2, PPR, Romeo Dobbs, Jackson Smith and Jigba, A.J. Dillon, or Zay Jones. All right. So I talked about Jackson Smith and Jigba this week, and I talked about, sorry, I'm pulling up the wide receiver rankings. I also talked about Zay Jones this week. Now, Zay Jones is definitely contingent on Trevor Lawrence playing. But I do think Zay Jones has some upside. This is a guy who, remember last year, he was, when Calvin Ridley was not there, Zay Jones was the wide receiver 2. And now he's going to be the wide receiver 2 again. He commanded 121 targets last year in that role. And he averaged over 12 fantasy points per game. He scored touchdowns. He caught passes. He's an explosive downfield guy who can make some plays down the field from time to time. So I'm looking at the rankings. I have Jackson Smith and Jigba as my wide receiver 38. And I have Zay Jones as the wide receiver 47 because, one, that's a tough matchup going against the Browns. And if Trevor Lawrence plays, it's not going to be a fully healthy Trevor Lawrence. And then if he doesn't play, it's going to be C.J. Beathard. So definitely a risk there with Zay Jones. This is probably not the week we're going to play Zay Jones. I do like him for the fantasy football playoffs, though. Give Trevor Lawrence a week or two to get healthy. I think we're starting Zay Jones pretty confidently in week 15 and week 16, week 17. Right now, a little bit shaky. So I'm going to play AJ Dillon, and I'm going to play Jackson Smith and Jigba over Romeo Dobbs. Though Romeo Dobbs is tempting. I'm trying to find where I have him in the rankings. I have him at wider. Yeah, I have him very, very close to Jackson Smith and Jigba. They're like two or three guys apart. I would lean JSN just because of the talent, but Romeo Dobbs, he's going to be the wide receiver 2 there with Christian Watson out. You know what? I think I want to play Romeo Dobbs. I think I want to play Dobbs over Jackson Smith and Jigba. Jackson Smith and Jigba's gut. I'm going to make the change right now on the rankings. He's got a more difficult matchup. Dobbs did play well without Christian Watson earlier in the season. Now, that was also at the beginning of the year before Jaden Reed was fully into that offense, being a rookie. And now we got Jordan Love playing really well. I think we got to play Dobbs. Even though I think Jackson Smith and Jigba is talented, we're going to play Dobbs. So we're going to go Dobbs, and we'll go AJ Dillon. I know Dillon hasn't been great, but going against the Giants should be a pretty solid Dillon game. So we'll give it to those. We'll play the 2 Packers. I'm okay with that. Well, I'm okay with playing 2 Packers. If you don't want to play 2 Packers, that's fine. Play JSN instead. All right, let's get this one from Steven. Raheem Mostert, Derrick Henry, or Chuba Hubbard. And then in the flex, we need Reed or Flowers. So I'm gonna play Derrick Henry at running back, even though we do have some concerns. I talked about that when we went through the running back rankings. There are definitely concerns about game script for Derrick Henry. Going against the Dolphins, they're going to be playing from behind. It's not really going to be a Henry game, but we know with Derrick Henry, all it takes is 2 fourth quarter 1-yard touchdowns in garbage time for him to get there for us. So I think we'll play Derrick Henry over Mostert and Hubbard. I do like Hubbard a lot, but we will play Derrick Henry. And then in the flex, it's Jaden Reed or Zay Flowers. I'm going to play Jaden Reed. This is the week to play Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed was already ascending. He had led the team in targets for multiple weeks coming into last week. And they like to get on the ball in multiple different ways. Christian Watson is out. And we saw Jaden Reed flash a few times earlier in the season with Watson out. But now Reed is a lot more established in that offense than he was at that early point of the season. Being a rookie. And Jordan Love is playing really well. So we're going to ride the hot hand there. We're going to play Jaden Reed over Zay Flowers. All right. Pavan, if you're going to ask a question, you got to pay attention when I answer, because we've already answered this question. I talked for 10 minutes about this question, bro. And now you're asking it again. Hit the rewind button, bro. We've already answered it. I appreciate you asking, but if you're going to ask it, at least pay attention. All right. So short answer, we were playing Romeo Dobbs and we're playing AJ Dillon. All right. But if you want to hear my explanation, rewind a few minutes. We already touched on it. All right. Get this one from Jake. Pick 2, Zay Flowers, DeAndre Hopkins, Adam Thielen, and Derrick Henry. All right. No worries, Pavan. No worries. We're playing Dobbs and we're playing AJ Dillon. That was the answer. All right. Pick 2, Zay Flowers, DeAndre Hopkins, Thielen, Derrick Henry. I think we're going to go DeAndre Hopkins. And then I think we're going to go Zay Flowers over Derrick Henry, I guess. Yeah, let's play Zay Flowers. I know there's a little weather concern with the Ravens game. I'm not worried about it. Unless they're gonna say it's gonna be super windy, which that is not what I've heard. I've heard just rain. Then I'm not worried about it. We're gonna play Zay Flowers. Play him over Derrick Henry. All right. Let's move on. Let's continue these wide receiver rankings. We've gotten as far as Michael Pittman was what? My wide receiver 11, wide receiver 10, wide receiver 10. So my wide receiver 11 is going to be DJ Moore. I think he belongs in the same tier. Oh, that that is not DJ Moore. That guy does not belong here. I just saw a guy in a Bears uniform and I dragged him up. Chase Claypool, talk about dead. Damn. Here we go. This is DJ Moore. All right. That's better. That is better. All right. DJ Moore going against the Lions. I think he could have a fantastic game. In games with just Justin Fields, in the games that Justin Fields has been healthy, DJ Moore is the wide receiver 2 on the season. He's been fantastic when he's had Justin Fields as his quarterback. So he is a must start wide receiver 1 every single week. They're going to have a great game script. It's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. Lions, they're a good offense. That means that the Bears are going to have to keep up with that good offense. They're going to have to throw the ball, which is great news for DJ Moore. And then we got Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk is a guy who's also having a fantastic season. He's the best wide receiver in San Francisco. I've been saying this for a year. He is better than Deebo Samuel. There's no question about that. I know Deebo just had that great game, but if we're talking about pure wide receiver talent, Brandon Ayuk is the better wide receiver. Now, if you want to argue that Deebo Samuel is the better football player, I'll let you go with that. But Brandon Ayuk is the better wide receiver. He has been consistent all season long. That's something I said during the summer. I said he is going to be, I know they have a ton of weapons in that offense. It's going to be hard for everybody to get there for us every single week. There's going to be some inconsistencies. It's going to be a roller coaster for guys like Deebo, like George Kittle. But Brandon Ayuk is going to be the most consistent, other than Christian McCaffrey, of course. He's going to be the most consistent part of that 49ers offense, of the 49ers passing game, and that has come to fruition. Keep playing Brandon Ayuk. He is a back-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 every single week. And now, with Tank Dell out for the season, I think Nico Collins is also in that conversation. Every single week, you are starting him as a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2. He is my wide receiver 13 for week 14. Nico Collins, he's had back-to-back 100-yard games. He went off for 191 yards on 12 targets last week after Tank Dell went out. I know it's a difficult matchup going against the Jets this week, which is really the only reason why he's not inside my top 12. But CJ Stroud has been playing so well. I think they will still have a functional offense. Functional? I think functional is probably what I was trying to say. They'll still have a functional offense. And Nico Collins will be the focal point of the passing game. You got no Tank Dell. And you have no Dalton Schultz as well, which will also help Nico Collins continue to command targets. He'll probably have another double-digit target game. And even against the Jets, I think that'll be enough to score as a top 15 wide receiver for the week. And then we got Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is my wide receiver 14. We just talked about him. We talked about him when we talked about Brandon Ayuk. He just had the big 3-touchdown game, but he is very inconsistent. He can go off at any time like he did last week. He can also give you 6 points at any time as well. So this is probably the highest I've ranked him in a while. So I think we're fine with him as the wide receiver 14. That should be a pretty fun game between the 49ers and the Seahawks. I'm looking forward to that one. Then we got Chris Olave. Chris Olave, talked about him slightly earlier. Expressed a little bit of concern with Derek Carr. So Derek Carr suffered a concussion. He broke a hip. He broke a foot. He snapped his neck. Dude is basically in a wheelchair. at this point. He's got no shoulders, he's missing fingers, he's got no toes, one eye, gonna wear an eye patch, and he doesn't even have an ear. But he's still gonna play. And that's a concern because he had a game like that earlier in the season. Remember, early in the year, he had the shoulder injury, he got crunched. And then the very next week, it was like, there's no chance that he's playing, and yet somehow he played. And it was kind of gross because all he did was hand it off to Alvin Kamara and check it down to Alvin Kamara. He didn't throw the ball down the field. He couldn't throw the ball down the field, but he went out there and he played anyway. That's how bad Jameis Winston is, I guess. When you got Derek Carr, who's already bad, who is like a 50% Derek Carr out there, is still a better option than Jameis Winston for real life football. Now, for us who roster Chris Olave, I think we'd rather see Jameis Winston. We'd rather see some YOLO ball, but we're not going to get that, unfortunately, which is a big concern for Chris Olave this week, because if Derek Carr is a shell of himself in a low-scoring game, I know Chris Olave has been hot lately. Those air yards are finally turning into actual yards. I'm kind of afraid there might not even be any air yards for him this week. Never mind actual yards. So there's definitely risk playing Chris Olave. But wide receiver 16 will play Devontae Smith. We might want to move Chris Olave down the rankings a little bit. I think we need to move Olave down. We're going to bump him down. I just kind of talked myself out of where I have him. It just doesn't make sense to play him this high. We're going to bump him down to the wide receiver 20 because there's a big Derek Carr risk. Big Derek Carr risk. All right, but we'll move him down to the D tier. Keep him on the screen, and then that means that Devontae Smith becomes our wide receiver 15 for the week. And this is why we do this show. We talk it out. We get to these conclusions. Like, you know what? I think we got to make a change. And we make a change. And you know what? I'm going to hit the button right on the website right now. So within a couple of minutes, you'll be able to see the ranking reflected. Chris Olave dropping down to wide receiver 20. You'll see that in my rankings at yardsperfantasy.com. So wide receiver 16, below Devontae Smith, is going to be Davante Adams. Things have been better. Things have been better for Davante Adams lately. They're coming off the bye, so hopefully things will be even better. And yeah, going against the Vikings. Vikings have been not that great on defense. But it's still Aiden O'Connell at quarterback, so there's definitely a risk playing Davante Adams. And then we get DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf had himself a game last week on Thursday Night Football. Dude went, 139 yards, 3 touchdowns. We've been waiting for this. DK, where you been, bro? We've been waiting for this type of game from DK Metcalf all season long, and he finally delivered. Fantastic. Love to see it. Not sure it's going to continue this week against the 49ers, but hey, it could. Let's keep riding that momentum. Keep playing DK Metcalf, but definitely a tough matchup this week going against the 49ers. And then we get Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp continues to free fall in the rankings. If he has another dud performance this week, he's going to be outside the top 24 next week. All right? This is the last time. This is your last chance, bro, to be ranked inside the top 20, even inside the top 24. I think we got to move into the D tier. It has not been good for Cooper Kupp. It has not been good. He doesn't look right, and the offense is kind of taking a step back. It just hasn't been good for Cooper Kupp. But it's still Cooper Kupp. We got to keep playing him. But one more week. Next week, if he doesn't perform this week, you have permission to bench him next week. Because then it's the fantasy football playoffs, and we need guys who are delivering. We need guys who are going to score fantasy points. So, Cooper, come on, man. Wake up, bro. We need you. I mean, I don't have any Cooper Kupp, but just fantasy football players. I'm representing all fantasy football players. Cooper, we need you, bro. All right. Cortland Sutton is my wide receiver 19. Cortland Sutton has had a fantastic year, man. He's fantastic year. I joked. Now, we do at yardsperfantasy.com, we do personalized podcasts for leagues. You can sign up and get us to do, me and the guys will do a podcast just about your league. And on one of those episodes, we talked about Cortland Sutton. And I was sarcastically saying that we're going to get an age 28 breakout from Cortland Sutton. You know, the fabled age 28 breakout. It's finally going to happen. It's here. You know, we see guys break out at age 28 all the time, right? Not really. So I was sarcastically saying that we're going to get a breakout season from Cortland Sutton. And you know what? You know what? Even though I was sarcastic about it, I'm going to give myself a little pat on the back. I was right. Even though I was joking. It actually ended up being right. But yeah, this was nobody expected this from Cortland Sutton. So I had a few Cortland Sutton skeletons on a few of my rosters in Dynasty this year because I loved him last year. He let me down big time. So I had him on a few rosters and just kind of sitting there, kind of dead. Couldn't get anything for him. And now he's back. And it's really, really paying off for me in a couple of these Dynasty leagues where I have him because now I can use him again. And I prepared my teams to not have to count on him anymore. So I've got other wide receivers startable. And now he's like a flex play for me. And yet he's giving me wide receiver 2 production just about every week. So I've got that in my flex. Sitting real pretty. All right, let's round out the top 20. We've already got Chris Olave in there as my wide receiver 20. So we're going to go rapid fire. DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver 21. Calvin Ridley. Even that might be high with who knows what's going to happen at quarterback for them. Difficult matchup going against the Browns. But they're without Christian Kirk. So that's going to open up things a little bit more for Calvin Ridley. Then it's Puka Nacua, Jalen Waddle as my wide receiver 24. Then it's Jaden Reed as a wide receiver 25. Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice, Garrett Wilson, Josh Downs, and Brandon Cooks rounds out the top 30. Let's just go to the 36. Let's go 36. Rapid fire, Adam Thielen, Gabe Davis, Tyler Lockett, Amari Cooper, Jacoby Myers, Drake London. You can find the rest of my rankings on yardsperfantasy.com. And if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. We will get to them. And I will, as always, I will be live tomorrow at 12:20. Going to go all the way up to kickoff. You'll also see the Coach Approach live tomorrow morning at 10:30 Eastern, answering your start sit questions. They go game by game, giving you the best plays of the week. All right. Let's get this question here from Mawalahawa. I love it. Mawalahawa. Ooh, I'm going to say that a lot. Mawalahawa. I'm probably not even saying that right, but it is fun to say. Let me tell you. Should I start Devontae Smith or Nico Collins? Yeah, we're going to go Nico Collins. I do like Devontae Smith. He's my wide receiver 15 for the week. But I have Nico Collins as my wide receiver 13. Both great plays. If I had to pick one, I'm going to pick Nico Collins. But I think they're both fantastic plays. I'd love to play them both if I could. Mawalahawa. But if that's the last question we got, this was a fun show. Like I said, find my rankings at yardsperfantasy.com. Hit us up in the Yards Per Fantasy Discord. Find me back on tomorrow at 12:20. Yeah, I appreciate everybody who tunes into these shows. I have a fun time doing these. But yeah, Mawalahawa.